Oh, hi there. Don't mind me doing some wheat harvesting. Cause believe it or not, I'm constantly running out of that stuff. So you would think about now it's time for a proper wheat field, right? Because that is, well, I'm the first to admit, very pathetic. Very pathetic. And we even have all that real estate over there available to us. However, I'm not gonna grind all that wheat by hand, oh no. With a big wheat farm, we also need a big windmill, so let's maybe figure out that first, before we plant then the wheat all around it. I already gone ahead and cleared out the space where we're gonna build the windmill, as at that point I certainly have recorded me cutting down trees more than enough. Plus, as a common forest elf, I also don't enjoy cutting down trees too much, so you don't have to see me suffer. And yes, it's raining again. It's always raining. And there's a creeper. Where did that guy come from? The windmill is gonna be fairly large, from what I have planned. So we need to be careful here, because I want to have some wheat in front of it, and I don't want to collide it too much with the skeleton farm. I think that makes for a good center, and I'm gonna build a very old-timey windmill that turns around in its entirety, so that will be the turntable pretty much. I do think that's a strong foundation, should be big enough for what I have in mind. And now let's start with the actual superstructure, and for that we need some dark oak, which hopefully I have. Then maybe some copper for the actual turntable. And then the supporting beams for the superstructure. You almost could think I know what I'm doing. Time for strapping. And this time we don't have any copper underneath, so you know, everything is good in the world. And we do have to think about from where do we enter the windmill. Yeah, something like that. And now imagine that being flexible so that when the windmill turns, it does not get caught here. Or maybe just have to retract it every time we go in and out. Just use your imagination for a bit here, alright? Okay, seriously now. Why does it rain again? Yeah, alright. I think you get an idea of the size. I mean, in terms of a build, it's not that big, but for a windmill, I certainly didn't want to go any bigger than that. But now comes the awkward part. Because somewhere here we have the axle for the blades. Are they even called blades on a windmill? You know, like on a wind turbine? I have no idea. But the axle for that goes out here. So, as you can see, we have the roof line here. That needs to crop upwards. And that's gonna be a bit interesting, to say the least. Yeah, I think that's going in the right direction. I know it looks very odd at the moment. Like a clown who got the wrong colored nose. Something like that. Yeah, I think that roof shape works out fine. And now I'm taking on quite a risk here. As you see, the axle is on a diagonal. However, for the rotor blades themselves, I've decided to have them perfectly straight, vertical and horizontal rather than slightly off to the side. I did some testing in Creative beforehand, but with the design I'm going for, I just could not find a way to make it look good on a diagonal. On a diagonal. Two-ways diagonal. You know what I mean, hopefully. Of course, by having them perfectly straight, it might look a little bit boring. Let's just try it out and hope for the best. Alright, now comes the awkward part, and that is to build those things. You know, that's where the happy gasp would come in useful. Shoot. And I did a little bit of math beforehand. I know, scary. Basically, I want those blades to be 12 blocks long. Well, that means on the diagonal, we need 9 blocks. Oh no, I've created a mob farm. Oh. Oh boy. That was a bit too close to comfort. I'm so glad mobs are too stupid to work with ladders. Gosh. Yeah. That's going in the right direction. Let's add the other two. Oh yeah, I like it actually. I think that works out alright. And if you know a little bit about windmills, unlike me, you may notice that actually that is a windmill out of use at the moment, as we don't have any canvas, any cloth behind the blades. But that is an intentional decision, as I wanted to have that beautiful structure that those blades have without the canvas on visible. And if you covered that up with wool blocks, it would look clunky. Looking from the outside, the windmill is still very blind, as we don't have any windows whatsoever. So the next step is for sure to sort out the layout of the inside. Well, the first floor will be a rather shallow one with just a singular window. And that is my very first time I'm using these awesome, how are these called? Copper grates. They actually have a lovely texture for windows. And then for the second floor we will have a little bit higher of the ceiling and also taller of a window. I'm about to create another mob spawner, aren't I? And we also should not forget the middle axle, and for that I'm very fancy and use actually full copper blocks. And then we finish off the outside with just a couple of trapdoors. Are these too many trapdoors? Maybe. How about... does that look weird? That does look weird. How about that? Just have one singular down here and the fancy setup up there. Yep, I think that works. And for some good measure, I've now also put in those dark oak fences on the corners and roughened up the texture with just some pale planks. I kinda envision it patches where the coating of the windmill got chipped off over time. I think it just adds a little bit more visual interest. But with that, the exterior is complete. And we can finally turn our attention to the inside. And yes, I've also added this trapdoor because it just makes much more sense. And now comes the part where I need to confess, I have actually no idea what a windmill looks like from the inside. I mean, I roughly know what's happening, but... yeah, I'll try my best, so bear with me. So I've now smoothed out the ceiling from the inside, and that way I also got rid of the lighting glitches. And seeing that this is the axle of the rotor, we might even... not sure, do we want to remove this floor? Well, actually maybe leave it as it is, because then we have some additional real estate up here which we can use for storage, which is probably not even that bad, right? And considering we will probably never see this space ever again anyway, I think storage is the right thing for up here. Just a few chests, and we might put a few trapdoors around here as a banister. As you can see, I've now decided to remove a little bit from the floor in the middle, so we can still see the axle from the floor underneath. Exactly the right number. Perfect. Yeah, I think that works out great. The centerpieces will probably be 2 mill drums. Mill drums? Millstones? However you call them. I have no idea. It's a bit massive, but maybe that's just what we have to work with. At that point I'm really just making things up. So you can imagine we would have several cogs here that transfer the power to a smaller shaft, which in turn then turns the millstone. Something like that. Sure, that makes sense. And we could of course use some clean copper for the inside, because maybe that's, you know, kept in a better condition. Obviously these will turn oxidized because they are not waxed, but we have a singular bee's nest, so we can do that stuff later. I'm not sure. You know, maybe just something like that. I mean, you cannot put them upside down, can you? They will always... Oh, you can. Yeah, because that looks much better, doesn't it? Oh, and it's raining again. but to make that whole thing actually functional. You know, not just for looks, but actually functional. I've prepared a little bit of redstone. So I guess we start with a hopper so we can throw in stuff. And how? Alright, yes, that's the right way around actually. And then we just need 2 observers, which need to kiss each other. Well, not like that. That's not how you kiss. That's how you do it. And then we can put in the wheat from on top here. And what the hell is it doing? Why is it just sending the wheat out again? Is it because of the hopper? Wait. Ah, alright, we need to have the barrel directly underneath. I mean, the hopper wasn't necessary anyway, I just used it as a spacer. But apparently that's not a thing. Alright, let's try that again. We throw in some wheat, and then out comes bread. Perfect. However, realistically speaking, I don't need bread. What I need would be something to put all that wheat into hay bales. But the issue with this contraption here is that even though these are not locked, these will never fill up to craft a complete hay bale, as obviously it will just do bread instead. So for this one we need to have a comparator. And now things get a bit awkward because the comparator needs to be somewhere here. Oh, that's a funny machine. I wondered if that would be an issue. Obviously, because I have one item in the crafter, as soon as a trapdoor gets a redstone signal, it flips. Lovely. Oh boy, why does redstone take up so much space? You know, actually it's pretty simple. We need a comparator and then a long enough redstone line, or with the exact right length, so that as soon as 9 wheat pieces are in here, the crafter fires. And I even had to carve out a little bit from the wall to make that thing fit into here. Which I had to cover up from the outside with trapdoors, but that's fine. Actually adds a little bit detailing to the outside, so I don't mind that. And as we wouldn't have been able to put another one of these in here, the other one is just for wheat. We can put 3 into, and if we activate it, we get wheat. And you know that off switch is just for sanity's sake. And also up here I've now added composters, barrels, a little bit of stuff to make it messy. Alright, let's now try it out. When we put all that stuff, that was quick, and well, what's left for the bread? Here we go, one wonderful loaf of bread and hay bales. But I know, some of you will probably now ask, won't it be just easier to craft the stuff manually? You know, it's just wheat into blocks. We have to harvest it by hand anyway, so what's the point? Well, the point is just because it seemed fun, but it really has no proper purpose. But that's alright. That is very much alright. But what has a proper purpose, or rather will have a proper purpose, are the rolling wheat fields. And while we're at it, you may notice that we have cliffs here, cliffs there, and then the vanilla terrain in the middle, which is just not particularly ugly, but also not particularly pretty. It's just meh. So while we're at it, we will also terraform all that stuff. And seeing that this is a lot of back and forth, and also we had no time lapse so far, how about we turn this process into a very satisfying time lapse. Enjoy! And the transformation is done. And as you can see with the terraforming, I did not only do the cliffs, but also added this nice lump of land, so we have a nice outcropping of the golden wheat. I think that looks beautiful. And also, before anyone worries, I did do the terraforming all the way to the bottom of the ocean, which was not fun, but you know, has to be done. But let's walk through it together to experience the full immersion. And I also added this little way here in the cliffs up and down, which I think is rather cute. And that's the path that just dead-ended at the beginning of the episode, which I've extended all the way through the wheat fields. And as you can see, we are already in the middle of it. Of this golden beautiful stuff. And we have a few azaleas around, because originally all this was a spruce forest. So I wanted to put a few trees back, and I think the azaleas add a lovely pop of color, especially as those leaves don't change with the biome. They're always that bright green. Quite a contrast to the spruce trees. And yes, these are sapling trees, but slightly modified so they're not quite as much hanging over. And for the night I also added a few lanterns with a very simple but I think effective design that does exactly what we need. And when we follow the path, we have a smaller path, actually not that much smaller, but you know, a little bit more rustic, that leads down the small cave that was here already. I of course decorated it and also carved it out a bit more. And it also leads down to the water line, which is, I think, just very beautiful, especially as our cliffs are kinda steep. It's quite difficult to get down, so that is lovely. And we have another one of those. Not quite, but this thing, which leads to a water-filled cave. No idea what I want to do with this. In a way, I don't just want to cover it up, because the way it comes out here is kinda lovely. But I just ignored it for now and, you know, planted the wheat around it. And if we cross through that ocean of wheat, I have planted about 1500 wheat seeds, so should we ever need wheat, we now have it. We now have more than one elf could ever need. Oh, it's lovely. I love it. And if we continue further, when we come back to the old area, there's our community center, and there's the Cliffside Tavern. And I've also added one lantern here, as otherwise this end was quite dark. And maybe I should also give you a view from above. Well, that additional space certainly adds a lot of crops to the otherwise not even that large area. I mean, I say that as if I haven't just planted 1500 wheat. Hi Carl, how are things going? I'm not looking at you, don't worry. Yeah, our Enderman, still stuck there. Probably will be so forever. What do you think of our farm area? The final piece of this side of the island? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you think we should add something that I've forgotten about. Maybe we could add some leaf litter eventually. But for that we have to wait until all the mods I'm using are updated to 1.21.5, but off the top of my head, that's the only thing that I think we could add fairly soon. But as it's getting night time, I think that's the perfect time to end the episode. And thank you all so much for watching. I hope you had a good time. Leave a like if you did enjoy it. And maybe, if you want, join me again for the next episode. Take care. See ya. And of course it's raining again.